Have you ever blasted through the main lab towards Outlast's finale, and then something made you stop and watch this footage in one of the screens, wondering what in the name of Wallrider is that all about? I mean it. What the fuck are those things?
What the hell?
Now, we'll get to that in just a second, right? But first, how about a little experiment first? I want you to watch this footage right fucking now, goddammit. Right? And let's see how long until your inner Eddie Gluskin, comes bashing his way out like,
Darling whore!
So you, much like anyone else, might be wondering right now, what is all this about? Well, within the game, this thing goes by the fancy name of the Morphogenic engine. Yeah, I know, talk about fucked up names for things just as fucked up. But anyway, the Morphogenic engine is one of the core elements of the Outlast universe. After all, it is the one thing that made all the wackos in and around Mount Massive act all out of whack? I don't know.
Buddy!
But for anyone taking their first look, it's hardly more than just a series of pretty disturbing frames, often mirrored and distorted, almost like those Rorschach test images. But it's not just that, you see. It's also that perfect pace at which these images are looped and shuffled, much like flipping through a book, except this one goes on and on and on infinitely. Same fucked up frames over and over and over and over again. Within the game's context, the Morphogenic engine was meant to be terrifying by its very design. Only the test subjects who had witnessed enough horror were capable of activating the engine. And if these words are anything to go by, the whole point of this flick is not just to drive someone crazy per se, but rather to terrify every fiber of their being in a way that would activate the cells in their body to produce a certain type of molecules known as the Wallrider. So whoever came up with these frames must have been driven by that very idea the entire time. But exactly how are these frames terrifying? Wacky? Maybe. Disturbing? Yeah, in their own way, but terrifying? That's a bit of a stretch unless we're missing something. We must first try to make sense of each frame. I mean, what are we even looking at to begin with? So let's kick this off with this one. At first glance, it feels deliberately mirrored, almost like a Rorschach test image. The symmetry is strong enough that your brain keeps trying to solve it, but never quite can. That alone creates a sense of unease. The two figures look puppet-like, or what's even more likely, they are just humans dressed in animal costumes, possibly birds or duck characters, and what looks like a rabbit right in the middle. That one is anyone's guess. It's black and white, and because it's also slightly grainy, it feels archival, like something pulled from early experimental film or pre-TV era footage. That gives it a faintly uncanny historical vibe. It's hard to put a finger on it, but I'd say emotionally this frame sits somewhere between surreal, faintly humorous, obviously because of the puppet-like forms, and quietly unsettling because of the rigid symmetry and lack of clear-cut context. As for where the original frame even came from, that is before it was abused and violated by red barrels every way it can be done, I've yet to figure that one out. I was, however, able to dig up other examples quite similar in terms of their overall vibe. So my best guess, unless Red Barrels made this frame entirely from scratch, which I very strongly doubt, it must have come from some long-forgotten pre-war cartoon or early film that featured puppet characters or humans dressed like furries, much like the ones depicted above. And next, there's this one. Unlike the previous frame, this one came up in my search pretty much right away. Some people might report seeing Christmas-themed patterns.
Dinner bells, dinner bells, dinner bells. Hello, meat. I can smell you. There you are, meat fuckers.
But what it actually is, it's a Vive. Yeah, Vive. And not just some Vive, but the Vive of Ogun, no less, which, in its essence, is a religious symbol in various forms and ways of an African traditional religion called Vodun. I'm sorry if I totally butchered the pronunciation, that happens. As for who or what this Ogun fella even is, he's a powerful warrior spirit of metalwork and rum. Yeah, I said it, rum. Moving on. This image is highly symmetrical, monochrome, grainy, and deliberately degraded. That already suggests memory, ritual, or ideology. This frame feels almost constructed to be read, not simply seen. At the center is a tall, triangular obelisk-like form tapering upward, crowned or intersected maybe by what strongly resembles a cross. It almost conveys a feeling of some form of religious authority or significance, like a totem or a symbol of belief or power, not a person. In real life, the triangle itself often implies hierarchy, ascension, or control flowing from the top down. Combined with the cross shape, it suggests institutionalized belief, not spirituality, but dogma. Now, paying even closer attention, you might notice how each and every single element of the overall structure falls into place to create an outline of a human face. I might be making this up, I've done that before, but look at this again. And that tapering triangle crowned with a cross-like structure at the top? If this was a human face, you would swear it was wearing that cross symbol on its forehead. Alright, I feel like we might be onto something here. Let's keep up the momentum. Here comes another one, and by far the creepiest of the bunch. Right off the bat, most people would report seeing an X-ray of a human. Mirrored, dissected, and pulled apart like a frog in a lab, and somewhat distorted, no doubt, to ramp up the creepiness factor. Fair enough, but that's all surface level stuff, because we're digging into the much, much deeper layers, like diving between the many folds of your 400-pound boo. Okay, I might have just put, my foot in my mouth with that one, but anyway, the most striking element in this frame is obviously the skull, centered near the top, hovering rather than resting naturally on the rest of the body. Below it, the image is all over the place. We have outstretched arms, torn muscle, fashioned into what could easily be wings made of sinew and smoke. It is, for lack of a better description, a body, a human body being pulled apart symmetrically. The symmetry is still absolute, but now it feels biological rather than architectural. Here, it no longer feels orderly, it feels imposed. Because real bodies are not symmetrical like this, the mirroring here implies dissection, transformation through force, control, standardization, loss of individuality, take your pick. Unlike the previous images, cross and monument, this symbol is universal, not ideological. It doesn't belong to a system, it belongs to being human. Think shifting the message inward, from structure and authority to the body and the self. It is as if the body has been processed, flattened into an icon the way the earlier image flattened belief into a monument. It could very well be Red Barrel's own shot at Peruvian man, which in real life is a symbol of, perfect human symmetry and proportions. Alright, so we've just picked apart some really interesting frames, and they were every single one of them was so mind-boggling and mysterious, yada yada yada. And now it's time to answer the question because, some of you might be wondering, now what? Right? I have yet to hear what this whole morphogenic engine thing is all about. Thing is, buddy, it's simply that, just a bunch of grainy, distorted frames stitched together with the sole purpose of, with the sole purpose of giving you an illusion of some big mystery going on, where in fact there is none. Because, in all seriousness, I doubt that Red Barrels, put in this whole game, slapdash in the span of 9 months on a laughable budget, laughable at best, I doubt that they had the time or the energy to really put some meaning behind those frames. They were most likely just, all right, so we're making this game about a bunch of lunatics and, this movie that drives them totally off their rocker. All right, so let's throw in enough creepy stuff, right, to make it all terrifying and shit. But I doubt there is any meaning behind those frames. So there you go, and take care.